there, Lisa here. I wanted to go outside and film Dundee today, but because it's such a gray, gloomy day, I figured I would just do a recap video about my 6-month trip as I traveled through Europe alone. And just wanted to give you some insights on the things that I learned while doing that. Before this trip, I had never traveled alone that long. You know, now that I've been outside the States for a full year, this whole experience is totally new to me. Like, when I formulated this plan of sorts a few years ago, when I knew, I was quitting my job and I wanted to travel as a nomad, I did not know a single person who had done something like this. Like, me coming up with this plan, it was just kind of like, okay, I have an idea on how it might go, and so I'm going to see if I can actually do it. And so, moving to Scotland and staying there for 6 months and traveling around a little bit in there, that was a nice way to kind of begin this nomadic adventure outside of the States. And then planning that 6-month trip, I formulated that plan while I was in Scotland. I booked out almost all of my flights in advance, almost all of my accommodations I booked in advance before I even left Scotland to start this trip. It was very planned. And I think part of the reason is that, I have to have control over things like that, and because it's a new experience, I didn't like the thought of, arriving to a new city in a new country that I'd never been to without knowing where I was going to stay. It just gave me peace of mind knowing that, okay, I'm staying at this Airbnb, I have the address, I know exactly where I'm going. No need to hunt for a hostel or a hotel or anything like that. And, planning in advance like that, it definitely has its advantages because I know I saved money. Because booking that far in advance, whether it comes to flights or accommodations, you're always going to save money. Waiting to the last minute, you're just, you show up in a new place, and you basically just have to rely on, like, if you're Googling stuff or looking around the city, like, where you're going to stay, and you're always going to end up paying more money. It's good to plan in advance from a money standpoint, but the major con to that is that you don't have the flexibility. If I would have been completely flexible, like if I had a completely open budget, I would have preferred just to arrive to a place and then kind of feel it out and then decide if I want to stay there for a couple months or just, a couple days. And that's something that I experienced when I was in Croatia. Like, I visited several cities in Croatia and I really liked Split, I really liked Zagreb. If I had the choice then, I definitely would have liked to have stayed longer in Split and not as long on the island in Korčula because I had an amazing time there, but one thing I didn't consider is that, being on an island, there aren't going to be as many markets. Like, I didn't see a single market there, and so the fruit situation was definitely more difficult being on the island as opposed to being on mainland Croatia because you have all these markets there, and like the market in Split was amazing, and they had watermelon and grapes and everything that I needed. So moving forward, when my boyfriend joins me in this nomad adventure starting this summer, we're definitely going to take a more flexible approach when it comes to planning our trip. We'll just book, our initial flight and then accommodations for like a week or two or even a month in one location. And then once we get there, we can feel it out and then decide, do we want to stay here for a couple more months or do we want to move somewhere else? It'll just give us the flexibility we want. Starting out traveling like this, it is very scary, and it's like, I need to have control over like my itinerary so I know exactly where I'm going and when. But when we'll be traveling together, it'll be a lot slower. We're going to just, spend a couple months here, a couple months there. None of this week here, 2 weeks, a couple days, whatever, because that speed of travel is too chaotic to me. Yeah, slower travel is definitely better if you're a nomad or if you're planning a long-term trip. At least for me, I get stressed out. I'm on like high alert when I arrive to a new place, and I'm stressed for a couple weeks until I just kind of figure out, where I can go grocery shopping, where I can go hang out, the public transportation stuff. At most of these locations on the trip, I didn't really find myself in a comfortable position until I was about ready to leave. Like Paris, I was only there for 2 weeks. Yeah, I wasn't really comfortable there, and then I had to go to the next location. Like in Dublin, I was there for 5 or 6 weeks. So for the first couple weeks I was stressed out, but then definitely by the end I definitely found a rhythm, and like I knew what I would be doing during the day, and it was more comfortable for me. And like, I know a lot of people, they want to travel to experience new things, and that's fine, but when all you do is travel like this, you definitely look forward to having just like a comfortable experience where it's like, yes, I have a daily routine. It's not new stuff every single day because that just stressed me out. And, of course, like being apart from my boyfriend, that was an added stressor. And then dealing with these diet issues, that was another thing. So it just was like, this whole trip, it was very stressful to me. And, just because I had never done something like this before, and like traveling alone, I didn't really expect to have any difficulties being alone on this trip, but it was difficult because if you think about it, like, seeing all this new stuff and experiencing all these new places, it's amazing, but it's definitely better if you're sharing that experience with someone. So whether it's a friend or like, my boyfriend, I think it would have been a much better trip if I was traveling with someone doing all this stuff. Especially when it comes to stressful situations, like if I had someone there with me just to chat about things, it just would have been easier for me to handle this stuff. And being in Dublin, that was a stressful time for me, but meeting my friend Sheila there, new friend from Instagram, totally changed my experience. And I just made it like a good time. Like I had fun there after we met because we would hang out, meet up, and go on day trips and things like that. Traveling alone, it taught me that, I can depend on myself and that I can problem solve. I can figure this thing out. Like I planned to travel alone and I knew I could do it then, but I definitely know I can do it now. And so in the future, if I had to travel alone again, I know I can do that. And like now, nothing phases me when it comes to planning trips or thinking about, we're going to Thailand in a couple weeks. This trip was basically just like a trial run to see if my ideas would actually work. And they did. And so now I know this is definitely a long-term sustainable lifestyle, that I can live this way. Now I'm happy that I can share this experience with my boyfriend because I met him when I was in Scotland before this trip. But I digress. Back to my list of things that I've learned. I booked all of my accommodations through Airbnb besides staying in Berlin with that couple I met through Instagram. For the most part, all of my experiences in Airbnb were great. There were a couple times where I didn't research the place properly, meaning come to find out when I showed up to the flat for my room, I was renting a room with other people in the flat. The host was actually renting out additional rooms to other people through Airbnb. So that kind of made me feel weird because I didn't want to be sharing a space with other people, especially men. I only wanted to live with women. That's something you have to research properly before you book on Airbnb. Just ask the host, are you renting out other rooms to other people, or like what's it actually going to be like? In Split, I had issues with one of the flats there because it was actually in a shopping center. It wasn't an actual flat. That issue could have been alleviated by me just, canceling my reservation before I even showed up there. And then I would have gotten refunded some of the money. But for the most part, Airbnb, that's what I'm going to use in the future for all of my bookings. It's cheaper than a hotel. You get to rent an actual space, like a flat, an entire flat to yourself or a room. I did another video on Airbnb tips, so be sure to look for that if you're interested in using Airbnb. On one hand, I wanted to live by myself during this trip, to have a flat to myself, but it was definitely more cost effective to rent a room in a shared flat. So if I had to do this trip over again, I think I would, I don't know, it's hard to say if I still would aim to have flats to myself or if I would save more money by renting a space with other people. Because for me, I feel a lot better living alone, having the kitchen to myself, not having to interact with other people if I don't want to. But there are pros to living with other people because I got to meet new people, had good conversations. They fill you in on what it's like to actually live there, like live in Barcelona, Palma, or Dublin. Oh, and then one thing I experienced in Paris, especially Paris and Barcelona, and in most of the places that I visited, catcalling. That was a huge issue for me. And in some of the places, like Paris and Barcelona, I have no desire to ever go back there just because it was so bad and so pervasive to where I couldn't even leave the flat for a moment without someone hollering at me or whistling or making kissing noises from their car, or people coming up and sitting with me and I wrote about this on my blog, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but being anywhere as a single woman, whether you're just sitting eating your lunch or just walking down the street, you're going to get harassed. That happened to me in the States as well. I don't like that feeling. I just want to be able to walk somewhere, from walking to the store or whatever, and just be left alone. So just very angering and infuriating. Yeah, in Paris, it just people would be walking next to me, trying to get me to talk to them. If you're not a woman, you haven't experienced this, but it happens every single day. It doesn't matter where you go. Men will just be unreasonable with you because for some reason a single woman can't exist in the world alone. And the only way to avoid that, if I had my boyfriend with me, they'd still be leering or whatever, but I doubt they would say something. Yeah, being alone is just, on this trip, it was difficult, because in Paris, some of the days I didn't even want to go outside because I knew the second I tried to go to the store, which was right down the street, someone was going to say something. Yeah, I just got to the point where I was like, I just want to get out of here. But it wasn't so bad in like Slovenia when I was in Ljubljana. Like only one incident happened. In every single location, I had to deal with men catcalling and harassing me on the street. So that, I mean, if you have a thick skin and it doesn't really bother you, that's fine. But for me, I just got sick and tired of it that I can't exist on my own without someone bothering me. So one thing I did is that no matter what, I'd always have headphones in, and I wouldn't be listening to music usually, but just as a way to deter them from like shouting things at me, because then they don't think that I can hear them. Because it's difficult, because it's like, I don't know if I should respond to them negatively or just to ignore them, because no matter what you do, they're just going to keep at it, and it's not going to really teach them anything. If you respond to them, you risk them reacting in a stronger way, antagonizing them, so it's like, you can't win. So I just try to ignore it completely. Yeah, but that was definitely something that troubled me throughout this whole trip, and it's just something I didn't really expect and didn't even think about. Oh, another thing is like, choosing the locations where I wanted to visit. Like, when I planned the trip, I picked very touristy areas. Like, I was like, I'm gonna go to Berlin, Paris, all of these places, because everyone goes there and everyone raves about it. But come to find out, I didn't really like the tourist hotspots. Like, I much preferred more low-key places like Ljubljana in Slovenia, and in Croatia. Just not as busy, and it's a different environment. Because not only are accommodations cheaper, the food is cheaper, it's not rammed full of tourists, people are very friendly and nice. It's just, that's more my speed. And I just prefer that environment better. So now, when I plan trips, through Europe, I'm definitely going to avoid Paris, Barcelona, Spain in the summertime, because I didn't know this, but all of Europe vacations in Spain in the summertime. When I was in Palma and Barcelona especially, super busy, and I didn't enjoy all those people there. If I had to do this trip again, I think I would avoid, all the big touristy hotspots completely and just stay in Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, places like that. I've lived alone, I've traveled alone before, I'm very independent. So doing a trip like this wasn't really, it was a big deal to me because it's something I've never done before, and I wanted just to see that I could do it. I think the biggest lesson this trip has taught me is that, I don't want to travel alone anymore. Like, I don't. I want to do it with my boyfriend or with a close friend. There really is no benefit to me to traveling alone like this, and I think my opinion has changed significantly because I met my boyfriend here in Scotland. I couldn't imagine doing this long term by myself, because like if I didn't have him to chat to during this trip, or just, with my friends in Scotland and in the States that I would chat to regularly, I think I would just feel too isolated. I want to share these experiences with other people. And so traveling alone, like, it's cool to say that I can do it and I can go to these places alone and it's not scary, and I would just, wander around the city on my own and meet new people on my own, but I would much prefer to have people with me. I'm just looking forward to the future, and I'm glad I learned that. I was watching Into the Wild for the first time with my boyfriend the other day, and like, one of the things that dude learns is that, happiness is only real when shared, and I think that is so true. That's the most important thing that I've realized during this trip, is that I don't want to travel alone. Yeah, well, if you have any questions about this trip or anything related to, traveling through Europe or the places I visited, please check out my blog, and I'll post a link to that in the video description down below. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, because I do new videos daily, Monday through Friday. And you can find me on social media. All of my social media links and accounts will be posted at the end of this video, as well as in the video description down below.